The case of Panera Bread against Boswell was really interesting, and it really helps you to get a closer look at contract law and how it applies in real-world situations involving lawsuits and companies breaking contract or not following the terms of agreement. In order to get a better look at this case, we need to understand Panera Bread and what they're like as a company, their history, their milestones. Panera Bread was founded in 1987. When they started off, they were big on sourdough bread, so they would make sourdough, they'd sell it, they have soups, sandwiches. It was really quite a good restaurant. They eventually expanded and grew to include thousands of restaurants, all with the name Panera Bread across the United States, and they offered a lot of jobs to people across the country as they partnered with different companies such as Caribou Coffee and different companies like that. We can see they were bought several years after their founding for $23 million, and their sales and their success really skyrocketed ever since then. We see in 2016 they made a great number of sales. They earned a phenomenal profit with a net income of about $145,000 US dollars. But the issues with the lawsuit really arose in 2011 when the Panera Bread owners decided that they were going to enter into a contract with the managers over their restaurants. They wanted their restaurants to be a little more successful. And to do that, they got their managers in on a contract where over a period of several years, the managers' restaurant, if they could turn over a certain profit, they would get a really big bonus depending on how much profit their restaurant made over a certain period of time. So it really encouraged the managers to work harder to try to up their restaurant standards, to get people in the door, to get revenue going. So at first glance, this would seem like a great idea. So the managers were getting a bonus and Panera Bread was getting more profit and they would be succeeding more. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way because eventually Panera Bread, when they entered the contract with several dozen managers, they didn't place a cap on what their bonus could entail. But in 2011, they introduced a cap after the signing of the contract, after the managers had been working with this restaurant for a duration of time, a good duration of time. They put a cap of $100,000. And at first, the managers, they heard about this, they accepted it, they're like, okay. Well, they didn't say okay, but they kept on working, they didn't quit, they didn't fight. And it wasn't until several years later that a couple of them got together and decided that Panera Bread placing a cap on their bonuses wasn't legal. And they wanted their full bonus even if it exceeded that $100,000 cap. So the person who led the charge on the lawsuit against Panera in order to correct this mistake was Boswell. When Panera Bread refused to remove the cap, Boswell decided to sue him, and along with several other of managers, Panera Bread managers, sued Panera Bread for this slight against them. What's the basis of this lawsuit that they brought against Panera Bread? Well, there's the issue of contract law, and once you sign a contract, you're bound by the terms of that contract. Whether or not you agree with them anymore, whether or not you think that you want to follow them or able to follow them, you have to. So instead of a bilateral contract, for example, would be a bilateral contract is when two parties, they both agree to bring something to the table. There's an exchange going on. They're both doing something for each other. So when a person purchases a house, that's a bilateral contract. We have the homeowner selling their house and the buyer giving a sum of money over to the homeowners or the previous homeowners. Inside of a unilateral contract, we have, for example, a contest. Okay, inside of this contest, You have a computer, and they're agreeing to compete with the chance to earn a prize. Now, if that competitor enters the contest and they win, there would be an expectation that they receive the prize. If they did not receive the prize that they were guaranteed in the contract, that would be a breach of the contract. So inside of this case, we see that Panera Bread argued that the contract was bilateral, and the courts decided that is incorrect. The contract was unilateral, and seeing as Panera Bread managers had already fulfilled many years of their obligated side of the contract, they were entitled to the full rewards wrapped up inside of that contract. So that included the bonus, exactly as it was stated originally, and that Panera Bread didn't actually have the legal standing to put a cap of $100,000. Panera Bread argued that the contract had been changed due to the manager's actions. They did not stop working, for example, and they did not say anything until years after the cap was first put into place. So Panera Bread thought that that was a good defense, that could shield them from having to remove the cap, but that's not what the court decided. The court decided, no, you have to honor the original contract with which you wrote with the managers. So 67 managers, they were all granted summary judgment, and they were eventually, after they finished their years working with Panera, they received their bonus in full without any sort of cap put on top of it. So let's look at the effects that this has on the industry as a whole. I believe that this will really discourage people from entering arrangements with their managers and employees that are outside of the manager and employee typical arrangements, because when you guarantee bonuses to people with an unlimited number of dollars placed on that, it's really just not good for business sense. Panera Bread, they were suffering financially, and fulfilling this arrangement, it would be a toll for them to carry it out, but because of their contract, they were locked in and they had to fulfill it. So I think that this would really discourage people in the future from entering bonus contracts with their managers in this way. And I think that the court was correct to side with the managers, because managers and Panera Bread, they entered into a contract, they both agreed, and the managers, they have fulfilled their end of the contract in full. They worked for Panera Bread for the duration of time, and they turned over profits, and I believe that they are entitled to what the contract originally promised them, even if Panera Bread didn't want to. If they claimed they couldn't, or they just couldn't handle that financially, it's not their choice anymore, as they already signed over the rights of that bonus to them in the beginning of the contract.